Well, thank you. Let's call the October meeting of the FCC to order. First of all, I apologize for starting late. Many of us were cordoned off from the building this morning. There were reports of a suspicious package. I do want to just take a moment to thank our security team here at the FCC and the first responders who are out there who work hard every day to keep us safe. We value your work, and thank you very much. Madam Secretary, please introduce today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you, and good morning, Commissioners. Today's agenda includes 2 items for your consideration and 1 status report. First, you will consider a report and order that protects public safety answering points, or PSAP, from auto-dialed calls, which can tie up emergency service telephone lines, by adopting rules that create a do-not-call registry of PSAP telephone numbers, prohibit auto-dialed non-emergency calls to those numbers, and implement specific monetary penalties for auto-dialing or disclosing registered PSAP numbers. These rules are mandated by the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012. Second, you will consider an order on reconsideration that revises the wireless communication service rules to facilitate use of 30 megahertz of spectrum for wireless broadband service while protecting satellite digital audio radio service against harmful interference. Third, you will hear a status report on participating CTI member wireless carriers' compliance with the October 17, 2012 deadline by which they must provide their subscribers with at least 2 of the specified 4 types of alerts to allow consumers to avoid unexpected charges for wireless usage exceeding their plan limits and for additional charges for international roaming. This is your agenda for today. The first item will be presented by the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Chris Monteith, Acting Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Great. Thank you. And whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We are pleased to present to you today an item that addresses a problem that implicates a fundamental goal of the Commission in promoting the safety of life and property through wire and radio communications. That problem is unwanted robocalls to public safety answering points, or PSAPs. Every day, robocalls tie up public safety lines and divert critical first responder resources away from the provision of emergency services. Consistent with the statutory mandate of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, CGB presents for the Commission's consideration a report and order adopting rules to address this important problem. The new rules will create a do-not-call registry for PSAP numbers and prohibit the use of robocallers to contact those numbers for any reason other than emergency purposes. In formulating these rules, we have relied upon the experience gained from the operation of the National Do Not Call Registry, which has proven effective and efficient in protecting residential telephone subscribers from unwanted telemarketing calls. As a result, our rules provide regulatory consistency, which will serve to minimize compliance burdens for those parties who are subject to both sets of requirements. Although today's item completes the rulemaking phase for the creation of the new PSAP registry, work remains to be done before it becomes operational. As noted in the order, we are exploring the most efficient way to administer the PSAP registry, among other operational questions. Once this work is complete, CGB will release a public notice providing the specific operational details, including the effective date for compliance with our rules. We will continue to work with the Federal Trade Commission on this effort and thank them for their cooperation. In addition, we would like to thank the numerous others at the Commission who have contributed to this item, including the Enforcement and Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureaus, the Office of General Counsel, and the Office of the Managing Director. Their input and collaboration has been invaluable. With me at the table are Mark Stone, Deputy Chief of CGB, Kurt Schroeder, Acting Chief of CGB's Consumer Policy Division, Nancy Stevenson, Deputy Chief of CGB's Consumer Policy Division, and Christy Lemoyne, Attorney Advisor, CGB's Consumer Policy Division. Christy will present the item. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you today addresses concerns about the use of automatic dialing equipment, or autodialers, to call public safety phone lines. Autodialers can quickly generate large numbers of phone calls and can tie up public safety phone lines, diverting critical resources of emergency responders and impeding access by the public to emergency services. As required by the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act of 2012, the report and order before you will establish a do not call registry for telephone numbers used by public safety answering points and prohibit the use of autodialers to contact those registered numbers for non-emergency purposes. The Commission initiated this proceeding last May in an NPRM that made several proposals regarding the creation and operation of the do not call registry. The record compiled in response to that NPRM confirms that the actions we are taking today are supported by the public safety community. Specifically, the item will implement Section 6507 of the Tax Relief Act by adopting rules that, first, give PSAP substantial discretion to decide which numbers to include on the registry, as long as they are associated with the provision of emergency services or communications with public safety agencies. PSAPs will be able to upload to the registry any telephone number associated with the provision of emergency services or communications with other public safety agencies. Second, prohibit the use of autodialers to make either voice or text calls to any telephone number registered on the PSAP do not call registry other than for an emergency purpose. The record indicates that some autodialed calls, specifically those with an emergency purpose such as government emergency calls, should not be prohibited by these new rules. The item before you ensures that these calls can continue while banning all other types of autodialed calls to PSAP lines. Third, limit registry access to autodialers for the sole purpose of compliance with the prohibition on contacting PSAP numbers in the registry and would require autodialers to certify that they will not sell, rent, lease, purchase, share, or otherwise use the PSAP registry for any purpose except compliance with the registry. And fourth, to ensure that the autodialer operators do not use an out-of-date version of the PSAP do not call registry, require the operators to access the registry administrator no more than 31 days prior to the date any call is made. In addition, the order will adopt the statute's enforcement provisions, including the specific monetary penalties established in the Tax Relief Act for contacting or disclosing numbers on the registry. These include penalties of up to $100,000 each time operators autodial a number on the registry and up to $1 million each time they disclose registered numbers. Once the registry becomes operational, the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau will release a public notice detailing the precise manner in which PSAP numbers can be submitted to the registry, how to access those numbers, and the effective date for compliance with these rules. In addition, Commission staff will work with public safety organizations to ensure that PSAPs are made aware of the opportunity to place numbers on the registry, and with autodialer operators to inform them about the new requirements and the consequences for violating these rules. The Bureau recommends adoption of the item and requests editorial privileges.
Thank you very much. Let's proceed to comments from the bench. Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can all safely agree that auto-dialed calls and robocalls are annoying. But when they flood phone lines used for emergency calls, they are no longer just annoying, they can become life-threatening. Congress recognized this problem when it directed the Commission to create a do-not-call registry for PSAPs, the collection centers, of course, for emergency calls. And I'm pleased that we are faithfully implementing this legislation. Today, we established that new registry for PSAPs to list their emergency numbers and shield them from auto-dialing and robocalls. Many aspects of this new registry will follow, as was pointed out, similar procedures already established for the current national do-not-call registry. This time-tested structure will likely make implementation easier for both the public safety community as well as the operators of the automatic dialing equipment. We also adopt strict enforcement rules, which should serve as an effective deterrent. So I will keep my statement brief, but I do want to thank members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee as well as the Senate Commerce Committee and their staffs, both current and former, for their work and leadership on this important issue. I also want to thank the chairman for bringing this forward and the staff at CGB for your expeditious and high-quality work here. So today's actions will make the jobs of America's first responders a little bit easier and will hopefully and literally save lives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Clyburn.
Thank you. Today's order fulfills Congress's goal of ensuring that robocalls are not tying up the telephone lines citizens use to reach 911 operators. This is a critical public safety item that I am pleased to support. For the very first time, all auto dialers will be required to check the Do Not Call registry for telephone numbers that are used by public safety answering points and are subjected to stiff penalties if they either automatically dial or disclose those numbers. Given that many users of auto dialer equipment have never been subjected to other do not call requirements, it is very important that they are informed about these new obligations. I want to thank the Chairman's office and the staff for already putting in motion plans to educate these users, which include area schools and well-known charities, that these new requirements have been instituted pursuant to law and must be followed once the registry is operational. I support and continue to encourage the Consumer and Government Affairs Bureau as they reach out to our sister agencies like the Department of Education and the Federal Trade Commission, as well as other national organizations such as the National School Boards Association, that can help spread the word about the new requirements. So again, thank you, CGB, led by Chris Monteith, for such great work on this proceeding.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosenworcel?
Nearly a decade ago, the Federal Communications Commission was at the forefront of developing the first national Do Not Call list. How do I know? I was, in fact, working here and working on it at the time. It has been an out-and-out success. Consumers have signed up more than 209 million phone numbers. That means millions of Americans get a reprieve from the ring and buzz of commercial solicitation, a break from unrelenting robocalls, and an opportunity for an uninterrupted dinner hour. It is a small way to bring a little bit more civility and a little bit more privacy to our always-on, connected lives. Today, we build on this success by creating a unique Do Not Call list that prevents unwanted calls to our nation's 911 centers. When 911 operators have to deal with unwanted auto-dialed calls and solicitations, they do more than invade our privacy. They pose a risk to public safety. After all, unwanted calls to public safety answering points can prevent emergency calls from being answered. They can prevent crime victims from reaching the police. They can prevent stroke and heart attack victims from receiving timely medical assistance. We fix this today by putting in place a special registry for public safety answering points, by prohibiting robocalls to these locations, and by establishing enhanced penalties for violations. This is not just the right thing to do, it is in fact also the law. In the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act, Congress directed the Commission to develop this unique Do Not Call registry for public safety answering points. For this, we should thank the leadership of the Congressional Next Generation 911 Caucus, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Richard Burr, Representative John Shimkus, and Representative Anna Eshoo for being such champions for public safety. Finally, I also want to thank my colleagues for agreeing to clarify that true emergency calls from automated services such as home security and automobile safety systems will reach our nation's 911 centers. This makes common sense. These services can help facilitate public safety. But if they fail and go beyond making real emergency calls, they can swamp public safety answering points with unwanted automated calls. Such calls are not necessary and can distract first responders from their jobs. Representative Eshoo has been a leader in fighting this problem, and I thank her for her efforts that have led to this result today. Thank you also to the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau for their terrific work on this important item.
Thank you. Commissioner Pai?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first item presented by the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau that I have had the privilege of voting at an open meeting. So I thought I would take a few minutes to start by recognizing the critical work that is done by CGB and by thanking the staff for all of their efforts. It goes without saying that all of the Commission's policies and programs should benefit American consumers. And by interacting with our most important customers, CGB helps us to stay true to that mission. Bureau staff educate consumers on a wide range of issues. They receive and resolve consumer complaints. They work tirelessly on making communications services accessible to those Americans with disabilities. They coordinate with our partners in state, local, and tribal governments. And they do much, much more. Indeed, most of the American people's contact directly with the Commission comes through CGB, and it is proactive and positive in carrying out its responsibilities. In all of its work, CGB is ably led by Chris Monteith. I had the privilege of working with Chris when she was the chief of the Enforcement Bureau, and I saw firsthand the care, the skill, and the dedication that she brought to that job. So it is no surprise to me to see that CGB is thriving under her leadership. Turning to the specific matter before us, I'm pleased to support this item. When Americans call 911, it is vital that they reach emergency personnel quickly. Indeed, often, it's a matter of life and death. Public safety lines, therefore, can't be tied up with non-emergency calls, and those who staff public safety answering points, or PSAPs, can't be diverted by such calls. Call Me Maybe may work for a catchy summer song, but for a PSAP, it just doesn't cut it. Congress sought to address this problem by requiring the FCC to establish a do not call registry for telephone numbers used by PSAPs and to prohibit the use of automatic dialing equipment to contact registered numbers. Today's item implements the statutory mandate in a very sensible manner. It provides effective protection for public safety while at the same time minimizing the compliance burdens on those who operate automatic dialing equipment. I'm pleased that the Commission has acted swiftly to adopt this item. As Ms. Lemoyne pointed out in her presentation, we released our Notice of Proposed Rulemaking less than 5 months ago, and today we are issuing rules less than 8 months after the enactment of the statute. So given this track record, I'm confident that the CGB will soon issue a public notice providing specific operational details related to the PSAP Do Not Call registry. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the Bureau staff who prepared today's item and who coordinated with the Federal Trade Commission and others. Your excellent work makes all of us proud and makes the American people safer. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We all know that robocalls can be seriously irritating, but the fact is there are times when robocalls go far beyond just being a nuisance, they become life-threatening. In emergency situations, minutes matter, seconds matter, so robocalls to emergency response centers put lives at risk and are beyond unacceptable. That's why Congress acted. That's why we're adopting this order that would bring this appalling practice to a stop. We empower, as you've heard, PSAPs to decide which of their lines are critical for emergency response, allow them to add numbers to a registry modeled after the successful National Do Not Call Registry that protects more than 200 million residential numbers from unwanted telemarketing calls. As Commissioner Rosenworcel mentioned, this is a real success story for the FCC, and it's an important achievement now to take this beyond, to learn the lessons from that, and apply it to a concrete example of how robocalls can threaten lives and public safety. To send a clear signal to robocallers that we take this threat seriously and will not tolerate these calls, we're implementing the large penalty amounts that Congress established. Now that our rules are in place, we'll begin the next phase, setting up the registry and getting the word out both to emergency service providers and to users of robocallers. We will be issuing large penalties if robocallers violate this, so there shouldn't be any confusion about that. Today's order is another step in really two parts of our work. One, our consumer agenda, and thank you, of course, to the Consumer Bureau for your consistent, excellent work on this, and also our public safety agenda, harnessing technology to help first responders and make all Americans safer. It's why we're focused on areas like Next Generation 911 and the rollout of FirstNet with our partners at NTIA, the public safety mobile broadband network for first responders. Let me thank each of my colleagues for working with us to move this forward quickly. I join my colleagues in thanking Congress for their work in adopting this provision. Congresswoman Eshoo, Congressman Shimkus, the committees in both the House and the Senate, thank you for your leadership. With that, let's proceed to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the request for editorial privileges is granted. So thank you all.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the next item on your agenda will be presented by the Office of Engineering and Technology, the International Bureau, and the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. It is entitled Amendment of Part 27 of the Commission's Rules to Govern the Operation of the Wireless Communication Services in the 2.3 gigahertz band, Establishment of Rules and Policies for the Digital Audio Radio Satellite Service.
Thank you. Julie, whenever you're ready. Ruth, who's going to?
It'll be me.
Great.
Just getting everybody settled.
Take your time.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. We are pleased to present the item before you that would amend the rules to make 30 megahertz of spectrum in the wireless communication service available for wireless broadband service while protecting against harmful interference to the satellite digital audio radio service and other services. The item was prepared jointly by the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, the International Bureau, and the Office of Engineering and Technology. And I'd like to thank from the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, John Leibowitz, Roger Noel, Tom Peters, Linda Chang, Richard Arsenault, Paul Moon, and Mazlum Salwez. From the International Bureau, Bob Nelson, Steve Duell, Gardner Forster, and Chip Fleming. And from OET, Ron Rapazzi, Mark Settle, Jameson Prime, and Patrick Foster. Joining me here at the table are Rod Porter, who is the Deputy Chief of the International Bureau, Ruth Milkman, who is the Chief of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, Ron Rapazzi, who is Deputy Chief of OET, and Patrick Foster, who is a Senior Engineer in the Spectrum Policy Branch, and Patrick will present the item.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The item before you now for consideration will revise rules for the wireless communication service and the terrestrial repeater component of the satellite digital audio radio service, or SDARS, to allow each service to flourish in the 2.3 gigahertz band. The item would revise certain WCS technical and operational rules to unleash the potential of the WCS spectrum to provide broadband services. Additionally, it would provide the SDARS licensee greater flexibility for the deployment and operation of terrestrial repeaters. The revised rules would enable incumbent WCS licensees to use 20 megahertz of underutilized 2.3 gigahertz WCS spectrum for LTE mobile broadband deployment. The revised rules we are recommending are devised to protect adjacent SDARS operators, Sirius XM Radio Incorporated, and flight testing users, and nearby deep space research operations from harmful interference. The revised rules would also enable incumbent WCS licensees to use an additional 10 megahertz of WCS spectrum for fixed broadband services, with possible future use as downlink spectrum to serve mobile broadband devices, for a total of 30 megahertz potentially available for mobile broadband services. The item would adopt a package of compromise proposals from WCS licensee AT&T Incorporated and SiriusXM that were designed to facilitate the efficient deployment and coexistence of the WCS and SDARS. The order also addresses a number of other technical issues raised in various petitions for reconsideration that were not the specific focus of the AT&T and SiriusXM joint proposal. Additionally, it would provide SiriusXM greater certainty by establishing conditions for identifying and resolving harmful interference to SSTAR's operations on roadways. It would also streamline the notification requirements for low-power SSTAR's terrestrial repeaters and minor repeater modifications. Furthermore, it would improve the process for identifying WCS licensees that would be potentially affected by the operation of high-power SSTAR's terrestrial repeaters or those operating with relaxed out-of-band emissions. Moreover, the item encourages WCS and SSTAR's licensees to enter into coordination agreements with one another for interference mitigation. The item would also clarify that WCS licensees should notify and, in some cases, coordinate WCS fixed stations, except customer premises equipment, with adjacent band licensees to further mitigate the risk of harmful interference and help resolve interference if it occurs. The item would also lengthen and restart the WCS construction periods to enable WCS licensees to respond to the rule revisions and provide additional time for significant deployment of services in the near term. The staff recommends adoption of this item and requests editorial privileges.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. Commissioner McDowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the original Star Trek TV series, as they flew across the galaxy at warp speed, the crew of the Starship Enterprise had to live under what the Federation called the Prime Directive. Now, in a nutshell, the directive prohibited the crew from interfering with the affairs of the planets they visited. Of course, they violated this directive in almost every episode, but that made for better TV. And that's not important now. So, back to Earth. The FCC's version of the Prime Directive, you're probably wondering where I'm going with this, right? The FCC's version of the Prime Directive is preventing harmful interference among wireless licensees. And that is precisely what our order does today. In FCC parlance, we are modifying old rules and adopting some new ones to create an interference paradigm that balances the ability for WCS licensees to deploy wireless broadband networks while protecting SSTAR systems, along with other adjacent bands from harmful interference. Saying all that while using the Star Trek Universal Translator, in English, that means we are acting to ensure that consumers receive the reliable and high-quality wireless broadband communication services they demand and deserve. As a consequence of resolving the long-standing interference issue, we are putting to use valuable slices of the airwaves which have been wasted or underutilized for years. In short, today we finally provide the certainty communications companies sought to pave the way for new 4G wireless networks while avoiding interference with the terrestrial transmissions of satellite radio services. Many of the rules adopted in this order are based on a coordination agreement entered into by SiriusXM, the holder of the SSTAR spectrum, and AT&T. The WCS licenses were awarded through an auction in 1997, and very soon thereafter they faced interference conflicts with terrestrial SSTAR's repeaters. In the ensuing 15 years, the parties and the Commission have endured countless hours of negotiations, drafted and revised several formal proposals and multiple rounds of comments, and issued and reviewed a 2010 order and petitions for reconsideration on how to resolve these interference issues. Our action today is built upon the foundation of a private sector solution, and as a result should bring an end to 15 years of discord that prevented putting the power of this spectrum into the hands of American consumers. To ensure that this spectrum is rapidly deployed, we retain the stringent build-out requirements adopted in 2010, but with some good modifications. Failure to meet these benchmarks will likely result in the loss of the license. Although we restart and add 6 months to the construction period, this additional time will allow WCS licensees the flexibility to decide what technology to deploy based on what best suits their needs and the consumer's needs, as opposed to what can be constructed during a shortened build-out period. The prior construction benchmarks were based on a presumed schedule for WiMAX deployment. To allow licensees with the option to construct LTE networks instead, the modified build-out rules provide time to develop, manufacture, and test that LTE equipment tailored to the WCS band. So I would like to thank the Office of Engineering and Technology, IB, and the WTB. This has been a terrific example of cross-silo cooperation and cross-connect within the Commission. And I know you're in the final stretch. I know this proceeding has not always been easy, but here we are bringing it in for a landing. So thank you for all of your hard work on this order, and may you live long and prosper.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Clyburn.
That was going to be my line, but thank you, sir. This agency's commitment to helping mobile wireless providers find solutions to the looming spectrum crunch is clear. Sometimes this means embarking on unprecedented regulatory actions, as we did last month, to open a proceeding on the world's first ever reverse incentive auctions. Other times, it may mean taking new, creative approaches, such as changing our Part 101 rules to enable more wireless backhaul services. Then there are times when we must resolve technically difficult, contentious disputes that have prevented the use of spectrum already allocated for wireless service. This proceeding has been especially challenging for the Commission because the technical rules requested by WCS licensees were vigorously opposed by some members of the aviation industry and satellite radio operators. In May of 2010, we thought we solved these problems. But as the parties pointed out, there was more work to be done. Fortunately, WCS licensees and satellite radio providers found a way to move from focusing on litigation to working toward consensus. They reached agreement on technical service rules for the WCS spectrum that helped to resolve potential interference concerns and facilitate efficient deployment of their services. Similarly, with regard to the other outstanding issues, our talented Commission staff was able to address those technical challenges in a manner that accounts for the interests of all stakeholders, including members of the aviation industry. This order finds solutions to allow WCS licensees to provide fixed and flexible mobile broadband service. It adopts technical and operating rules to enable LTE deployment in 20 megahertz of WCS spectrum. In addition, it makes another 10 megahertz of spectrum available for fixed broadband, with possible future downlink use of spectrum to serve mobile broadband devices. The order also provides greater certainty to satellite radio providers by requiring WCS licensees to coordinate and resolve any interference issues. I applaud the efforts of the staff of the International Bureau, Office of Engineering and Technology, and the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau for approaching these tough issues with an open mind and working through each one to arrive at a conclusion that best serves the American public. I appreciate Ron Papasi and Patrick Forster for taking time to brief me on these issues, and I want to also give a special thanks to the Bureau Chiefs, Julius Knapp today, Mendel Delatorre, represented by Rod Porter, and Ruth Milkman for their leadership and cooperation with industry to solve these very complicated issues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Rosenworcel.
Today, we move closer to achieving President Obama's goal of freeing 500 megahertz of spectrum for mobile broadband use. By modifying technical rules in the wireless communications service band, we free up to 30 megahertz of spectrum for mobile broadband without causing interference to satellite radio or flight testing. This is good news, but it is part of a wireless tale a long time in the making. So as we look forward for opportunities to free additional spectrum for mobile broadband use, I think it is smart to look back and examine the history of the WCS band. There are lessons to be learned. The story starts in 1996, when Congress directed the Commission to make the 2.3 gigahertz band available for wireless services. The agency completed the auction of this spectrum the very next year. It raised more than $13.6 million in revenue. Though the WCS licenses were flexible, auction winners were required to provide substantial service within 10 years, regardless of what service they deployed. At the same time, the Commission auctioned the adjacent spectrum to be used for satellite radio. While satellite radio became a successful business over the next decade, things did not go so well for the WCS licensees. They could not find a profitable service that did not interfere with their neighbors. 9 years hence, the WCS spectrum was still mostly sitting fallow, and the licensees asked the Commission to extend their build-out deadlines. Although the substantial service obligations were not met, the deadlines were extended. But just a handful of years later, in 2010, the Commission stepped in to update the technical rules and impose specific build-out requirements. So for many years, we had a large swath of spectrum frozen and unused. But this year, things began to thaw. The ice began to break with a number of secondary market applications for WCS licenses, deals reportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars. With these applications, we received a proposal that led to the order we're adopting today for new rules that the parties agree will finally put these airwaves to use. Now, as a result, we can see our way toward new mobile broadband services for consumers in the near term. So what can we learn from this experience? First, spectrum is only growing more valuable with time. That means priority on putting it to use, getting our build-out requirements right the first time, and holding licensees to the commitments they make. There is a second lesson here, too. Secondary markets are a powerful way to address demand and improve the efficient use of spectrum. Although the applications for the WCS license transfers have not yet been resolved, we should keep in mind that secondary market negotiations have led to this innovative fix for a long-standing conflict. Going forward, then, here is what we can take with us as we push toward President Obama's goal of freeing 500 megahertz of spectrum for mobile broadband use. Strong build-out requirements, combined with a vigorous secondary market, can be a potent way to speed the delivery of new spectrum for wireless broadband services. So thank you to the Chairman for bringing us this item today. Thank you to my colleague, Commissioner McDowell, for references to the Millennium Falcon. And thank you also to the Office of Engineering and Technology, Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, and International Bureau for their literally years of work on the WCS band and their unwavering commitment to see this spectrum put to use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Pai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the wireless world, getting along with neighbors sometimes can take effort, sometimes a lot of effort. But I think there are enormous benefits to forging a successful relationship with the licensees next door. This is especially true in the 21st century mobile economy. Demand for mobile broadband is skyrocketing. Wireless service providers are strapped for spectrum. And more neighbors are crowding into less than ideal spectrum saddled with legacy band plans. All of this is leading to challenges, not the least of which is interference. Technological advances can help resolve these concerns, but good old-fashioned negotiation and cooperation is also vital. Although federal regulations serve as an important backstop for mitigating interference, we can and should encourage voluntary resolution of concerns about interference and make sure that our rules don't inadvertently impede licensees from making the best use of spectrum. Such is the case with the Wireless Communications Services, or WCS spectrum. As my colleagues have noted, this spectrum has been woefully underused since 1997, mainly because operating a terrestrial network in this band could disrupt reception to satellite radio customers in neighboring bands. Even 2 years after we amended our regulations in an attempt to facilitate mobile broadband service in the WCS spectrum, it largely has remained fallow. This is why I proposed this past July that the Commission act on pending petitions for reconsideration in order to get the spectrum fully integrated into the commercial marketplace. What has broken the logjam, at long last, is a private, mutually beneficial agreement reached this summer between the largest WCS licensee, AT&T, and the STARS licensee, SiriusXM. Today's order generally memorializes that agreement in Part 27 of the Commission's rules, enabling WCS licensees to put to use 20 megahertz for nationwide 4G LTE deployment, and an additional 10 megahertz for fixed wireless broadband, with the potential to use the spectrum for mobile downlink at some point in the future. These regulatory modifications also will protect adjacent satellite radio services, aeronautical mobile telemetry, and deep space network services from harmful interference. Put simply, today's order is a win for consumers, a pathway for future wireless innovation, and an invaluable step toward meeting the Commission's spectrum goals. Of course, there's no rest for the weary. Several secondary market transactions involving WCS spectrum remain pending. And so now we have to take action on these applications so we can realize the full promise of the WCS band. I hope that we can resolve these matters by Thanksgiving so that this spectrum can begin serving the needs of our mobile economy as soon as possible. Finally, I'd like to thank our expert staff for helping to shepherd this agreement and to implementing the technical details. In particular, I would like to thank Julie Knapp, Ron Rapasi, Patrick Forster of the Office of Engineering and Technology, Mindell De La Torre, Rod Porter, Gardner Foster, Robert Nelson, and Stephen Duell of the International Bureau, and Ruth Milkman, John Leibovitz, and Linda Chang of the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. Your hard work and perseverance on this important item is very much appreciated. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Over the past 4 years, the U.S. has regained global leadership in mobile, setting the pace in key areas like the apps economy, mobile operating systems, and the rollout of 4G LTE networks at scale. The U.S. has become the world's testbed for 4G LTE services and applications, which is vital for U.S. innovation leadership and for sustainable job creation. Now, to maintain our leadership and to spur future innovation, we need to ensure that the U.S. has a strategic bandwidth advantage: fast, high-capacity, and ubiquitous broadband. That requires maximizing the value of the airwaves and ensuring that the spectrum crunch doesn't slow growth in the mobile economy. With this order, we are freeing up 30 megahertz of WCS spectrum for broadband, which will help maintain our global leadership in 4G LTE and fuel U.S. competitiveness in the global bandwidth race. 3 points about today's order. First, making this particular spectrum available for broadband will help sustain U.S. mobile leadership in part because the U.S. is leading the way in developing LTE standards for the WCS band. This is the spectrum at 2.3 gigahertz. Second, today's order frees up spectrum by removing regulatory barriers to flexible use of spectrum for broadband, an approach that we are seeking to implement across the board and that can be as valuable as clearing and reallocating new bands of spectrum. Removing regulatory barriers is just one of the approaches we're using as part of our comprehensive strategy to free up spectrum and increase the efficiency of spectrum use. The Commission is also reallocating underutilized spectrum, as with the historic incentive auction proceeding, moving forward with traditional auctions, working with our partner agencies to clear and reallocate government spectrum, enabling dynamic spectrum sharing, and facilitating secondary market transactions. This comprehensive strategy is delivering on the National Broadband Plan's goal of freeing up 300 megahertz of spectrum for broadband by 2015 and 500 by 2020. Now, the third, this order is a great example of Commission staff working with stakeholders to maximize the value of spectrum by facilitating pragmatic solutions to spectrum challenges. The WCS band is a long-troubled band that has evaded easy answers for 15 years. At the beginning of this year, we decided that enough was enough. Commission staff engaged with stakeholders and helped drive a resolution to thorny and long-standing interference issues, facilitating coexistence or sharing in the spectrum between these services and the availability of the spectrum now for mobile broadband. I'd like to thank AT&T and SiriusXM for throwing themselves into this process and helping us deliver a pragmatic solution. I want to thank all of my colleagues for working on this to drive this to resolution. The staff here just did excellent work. As we know, this has been something that we've been pushing for quite some time, and like so many other of our proceedings and initiatives and orders, it's the product of different parts of the agency working effectively and efficiently together. And so we have OET here and the Wireless Bureau and the International Bureau as well as the General Counsel's Office, and have required others as well. So thank you to each of you. This really is a tremendous achievement. And with that, let's proceed to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the request for editorial privileges is granted. So thank you very much. And I believe that concludes our items for voting, but we have a presentation.
That is correct. The final item on your agenda is a status report presented by the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, and it is entitled Wireless Carrier Usage Alerts to Prevent Bill Shock.
Once again, thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, CGB is pleased to provide you with a status report on the issue of wireless carrier usage alerts to prevent bill shock. Usage alerts are an important consumer empowerment tool that better enable consumers to avoid unexpected charges for wireless usage exceeding their plan limits and for additional charges for international roaming. With me at the table is Bill Friedman, Deputy Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, who will provide the presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. 1 year ago today, Chairman Janikowski and representatives of Consumers Union and CTIA, the Wireless Association, stood together on a podium in Washington. They were present for CTIA's announcement of its voluntary agreement with its participating member carriers, by which the carriers agreed to provide critical information to subscribers about the ongoing levels of each subscriber's usage of the various communication services that the carriers offer. This cooperative agreement between government and industry is already getting this information to our nation's wireless consumers to help them avoid bill shock, the sudden, unexpected increase in a consumer's monthly wireless bill. Bill shock occurs when a consumer unknowingly exceeds the monthly limits on his or her wireless plan for voice, text, or data, resulting in unexpected and often significant additional monthly charges. Bill shock can also occur when a consumer travels abroad and unwittingly incurs international roaming charges. After a series of discussions with the Commission staff to take into account the concerns voiced by stakeholders in the Commission's 2010 bill shock rulemaking proceeding, including consumer organizations and state regulators, as well as consideration of the types of bill shock complaints that the Commission had received, CTIA and its members agreed to send these alerts when their subscribers approach and again when they reach their monthly plan limits for voice, data, or text and be subject to overage charges. These service providers also agreed to send an alert when a consumer's wireless device registers overseas, which may result in roaming charges that are higher than the consumer's normal rate. At the urging of Commission staff, CTIA and its members agreed that these alerts will be provided without charge and automatically, requiring absolutely no action by a consumer. Finally, the wireless providers agreed to clearly disclose to consumers the tools that they offer to allow their subscribers to review their usage balances and to set their own usage limits. Under the revised CTIA code, the participating carriers must have started to provide their subscribers with 2 of the 4 types of alerts, voice, text, data, and international roaming, by today, and to offer all of the agreed-upon alerts by April 17, 2013. I am happy to report to you that as of today, each participating CTIA member carrier has satisfied its obligations under the revised code. That is, each is providing at least 2 of the 4 types of required alerts, and some are exceeding that goal ahead of schedule. The providers are each on track to provide all 4 by next spring's deadline. In order to give consumers access to this important information, last April, the Commission created and launched a website that tracks the progress of each participating carrier in providing these alerts to consumers. In coordination with CTIA, the Commission has created an easy-to-understand online table which discloses the types of alerts that each carrier is offering, with a link to the carrier's website describing the carrier's specific policies in providing each type of alert. And this website is available at fcc.gov/bill-shock-alerts. By consulting the table, consumers can become better informed when selecting a wireless service provider by taking into account whether a particular carrier will send them the types of alerts that they need to avoid bill shock. We will continue to revise that information as CTIA provides us updated carrier practice information to continue to empower consumers to make informed decisions about the communication service that they each use and enjoy. It is welcome news that these carriers have each stepped up to meet their obligations under this public-private partnership. As noted earlier, we are pleased that the service providers are on track to provide all of the agreed-upon alerts by April 17, 2013. That said, however, the Commission encourages any consumer who is not receiving these promised alerts to let us know. If, after looking into the matter, it appears that a carrier is not providing these alerts, we will take appropriate action. We are continually amazed by the remarkable tasks that each new generation of wireless devices can accomplish. Yesterday's limited function brick cell phone or flip phone has virtually become a compact handheld computer with the capability of performing operations that no one dreamed possible just a short time ago. However, with the increasingly sophisticated tasks that wireless devices can perform, usage information has become and will continue to be extremely important to consumers. With the growing complexity of the tasks that wireless devices can perform, and as carriers offer greater operating speeds, more data is consumed. With these developments, it is critical that carriers continue to alert their customers to their wireless consumption levels so that consumers can better manage their usage as they benefit from these applications. We have been told by consumers that these alerts have already been in place have allowed them to avoid unexpected charges, and they're accordingly helping to alleviate the problem of bill shock. We look forward to continuing to work with the wireless industry to ensure that the services that it offers to subscribers not only meet their needs but also their budgets. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was excellent. Commissioner McDowell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to congratulate you, Mr. Chairman, from when this started over a year ago. Actually, it was when the idea started, but here we are on the one-year anniversary. I want to thank the team yet once again today of CGB for all of your hard work on this endeavor, as well as the folks at CTIA and all of your members, as well as the Consumers Union and many others on this very important effort to help protect consumers from unexpected charges on their wireless bills. This success story is the result of an ongoing effort. It will continue to go forward into the horizon for a while between the Commission and, again, the private sector. I've long held that cooperative efforts rather than forced mandates yield the best results. And today we see that this approach ensures that the government will not inadvertently interfere with or add unnecessary costs to the development of innovative and useful tools that help consumers manage their wireless usage. So an October 2010 white paper released by CGB states that the Commission had received about 764 bill shock complaints in the first months of 2010. The CGB's records available on the Commission's website right now indicate that the agency received about 416 such complaints in the fourth quarter of 2010. According to the website, this was the only quarter in which bill shock complaints were reported. I think it's also worth noting that both prior to and since 2010, bill shock complaints apparently did not amount to a level that CGB felt it should list on the website. And perhaps this is due to the discussion here at the Commission as well. But I'm pleased that as of today, about 96% of America's wireless consumers, or about 312 million people or so, are protected by a private sector solution from receiving unexpected charges on their bills. This result was produced, again, without a government mandate, which actually provides us, I think, with a model for future non-governmental solutions to challenges faced by American consumers. So again, I wanted to thank everyone for their creativity and their good faith, honest work in this direction, and congratulations to everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clyburn.
Last year, Mr. Chairman, upon the announcement of the voluntary effort to alert mobile customers about service overages, I mentioned that the most important aspect for me was that CTIA's members agreed that the FCC should track their compliance with these measures. So it's great to hear that each participating carrier has satisfied its obligation to provide at least 2 of the 4 required types of alerts. Additionally, I am pleased that they are on track to provide all 4 alerts by the April deadline. However, it remains my hope that the Commission will not hesitate to act if, despite these voluntary efforts, enforcement actions are still necessary to protect consumers. I commend Steve Largent of CTIA for showing continued leadership on this issue, and I want to join others in thanking Bill Freeman and again Chris Monteith for this morning's presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosenworcel.
So there are now more wireless connections for phones and tablets in the United States than there are people. And we rely on these devices like never before. They help us stay connected to our families, our friends, our jobs, our communities. They are an essential part of our daily lives. And as we eagerly adopt new wireless devices and consume a growing number of wireless services, it is more important than ever that we understand what we are spending our money on. And let's be honest, wireless plans have gotten complicated. Carriers offer a wide array of options, including limited and unlimited voice, data, and texting. They offer plans that can be shared across multiple devices and plans with additional roaming fees. It is no wonder that 1 in 6 Americans have experienced bill shock. Let me highlight one story. Selena Ahrens typically paid about $175 per month for her wireless family plan that she shared with her 2 brothers, both of whom are deaf. One month, at home in Florida, she received a $200,000 bill from her wireless carrier because her brother had spent 2 weeks in Canada and had sent some text messages and downloaded some videos. Due to steep international roaming fees, Selena was left to negotiate the payment of an astronomical bill without any warning. Now, Selena's story is especially egregious, but her problem is not uncommon. The Commission has received too many complaints telling similar stories. Consumers stuck paying thousands of dollars in overage fees when they unknowingly surpassed their data usage limits. Parents paying hundreds of dollars when a teenage child on a family plan exceeds their limit on texting. And consumers surprised with very high bills for wireless usage abroad when they return home. These stories teach us that it is frighteningly easy to misunderstand your plan, surpass plan limits, and wind up paying the price. How many people in this room know how many bits of data they have used so far this month? How many minutes of voice, or how many text messages? The truth is, keeping track is difficult. So here's what I think. Nobody should need to hire a lawyer to understand their wireless contract, and nobody should need to hire an accountant to explain their wireless bill. That's why the Bill Shock initiative we are discussing today is so important. Kudos to the chairman, to Consumers Union, and of course to CTIA for their hard work to address this problem. Under the agreement we celebrate here, CTIA members have committed to provide alerts to their wireless customers both before and after subscribers reach their monthly limits on voice, data, and texting, and also when international roaming charges apply. That means that starting today, wireless carriers across the country have committed to providing 2 of the 4 alerts, and as we've learned, in 6 months, carriers will provide all 4 alerts. They will do this free of charge, and they will not require action on the part of their subscribers to receive these alerts. In addition, they have agreed to help consumers by disclosing the tools they offer to review usage balances and set usage limits. Good things, all. But as the presentation today suggests, the Commission needs to remain the cop on the beat. So I ask that the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau track the complaints received that are related to bill shock, and then produce a report summarizing your findings a year after these voluntary agreements go into effect. It's my hope that these alerts will reduce the incidence of bill shock, reduce the number of complaints filed, and increase consumer satisfaction with the wireless services and devices we rely on every day. So thank you to the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau for this presentation, for your work on this issue, and thank you also to Consumers Union and CTIA for your work on this agreement and your efforts to improve the consumer wireless experience.
Thank you. Commissioner Fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Friedman and Ms. Monteith, for that presentation. I joined the chorus of my colleagues in applauding the wireless industry's efforts to give consumers more information about their use of communications services. Transparency is a good thing, and when armed with more data, consumers can make better choices for themselves and for their families. Going forward, I hope that service providers will not confine themselves to a rigid, one-size-fits-all approach to this issue. Our experience over the past 20 years shows us that, if anything, innovation defines the mobile space. If that proves to be the case here, carriers will continue to develop new and better ways for consumers to both monitor the services that they are using as well as the charges that they are incurring. We should welcome such innovation here at the Commission and make sure that we don't stand in the way. Finally, I also hope that the Commission will continue its hands-off policy when it comes to usage-based pricing in the wireless world. Most of us know and accept that the more we consume, the more we pay. If you use more electricity or water at your home, your bill will go up. If you order more food at a restaurant, you will be charged more. The more clothes you buy at the department store, the more money you'll have to fork over. The government can't interfere with this fundamental tenet of our free market economy without unintended and unpleasant results. And we should be clear that the FCC will not travel down that path. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, 1 year ago today, I was pleased to join with CTIA, the Wireless Association, and Consumers Union to announce a solution to a real problem that was costing millions of U.S. consumers, hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars each, and sometimes even more. The problem was bill shock. This was a big step forward in the Commission's consumer empowerment agenda. It harnessed the power of technology to empower consumers with information they can use to save money on their monthly mobile bills. It empowered consumers to help make the market work. Specifically, as you heard, we announced that the wireless industry would provide consumers with timely alerts informing them when they were approaching and exceeding their plan's limits for text, data, and voice, or when they were about to be billed extra for international roaming. These alerts would be free and would be sent automatically by mobile companies to their customers with no action necessary by consumers. Now, prior to this announcement, the Commission had formally proposed rules to tackle the bill shock problem. In light of the steps on the part of the wireless industry, we put our rulemaking on hold and said we would take a trust but verify approach to ensuring that carriers take these steps to help eliminate bill shock and that consumers are treated as they deserve. Today, we can verify that carriers are living up to their commitments, and U.S. wireless consumers now have more information and tools to avoid bill shock. Each of CTIA's participating carriers is today providing consumers with at least 2 of the 4 required alerts, which are for text, data, voice, and international roaming fees. And we are on track for all carriers to provide all 4 of these alerts within 6 months as they have pledged under this initiative. More than 97% of wireless consumers across the country will be protected from bill shock when this plan is fully implemented in 6 months. Now, fulfilling our commitment and responsibility to monitor this agreement, to help better inform consumers, and to use technology and transparency to empower consumers, the Commission has posted on our website information about the carrier's commitments and actions. Consumers Union will also be publishing this information on their website. We'll continue to work with CTIA and the wireless industry toward the April 17th deadline for full compliance. And we will continue to be vigilant in ensuring that mobile consumers are protected and empowered. I appreciate the efforts of the mobile industry to help end consumer bill shock, and I appreciate the work of CGB and others at the Commission and in my office to drive this initiative to help empower consumers and for all your work on the consumer agenda. I thank Commissioner Clyburn for being a consistent voice to make sure that we not simply announce the initiative, but make sure it was being complied with and be vigilant every day in our work on behalf of consumers. Between our efforts on bill shock and our efforts to crack down on mystery fees and cramming, consumers can feel confident knowing that the FCC has got their back. So thank you very much for this presentation and for your work. And I think we have a few announcements, so you are free to sit or not. Before we move to personnel announcements, I would like to take a few minutes to do something that I think last year we made an annual tradition at our commission meetings, which is to recognize the winners of the FCC's Excellence in Engineering and Excellence in Economic Analysis Awards. As the nation's expert agency on communications technology, the work of our engineers and economists are the lifeblood of the commission. Sean, this is not taking anything away from the work of our lawyers, which is incredibly important. But the fact is, for us to do our work and to do the kinds of things that we saw today, the WCS interference resolution, the 911 PSAP registry implementation, the Bill Shock initiative, and more, the work of our engineers and economists together with our lawyers and others at the staff is essential. And one of the things we're all proud of is how well the different elements of the agency's expertise have come together to work so effectively on behalf of initiatives and rules that promote our economy and empower consumers. We couldn't do that without our engineers and economists. The diversity of their work is remarkable and reflected in today's winners, from work on our major transaction reviews like the AT&T T-Mobile transaction, to our work to transform the Universal Service Fund and establish the Connect America Fund, to our roll call teams under our Public Safety Bureau that are out there in times of emergency working with other first responders to save lives. These are all things that couldn't happen without the expertise of our economists and engineers. This is really a wonderful pleasure, but on behalf of all of my colleagues, I'm going to announce each of the winners and ask that each winner stand and remain standing as I call your name. I will ask everyone here to withhold applause until the end. First, the winners of the Excellence in Engineering Awards. From OET's Laboratory Division, Kwok Chan. All right, sorry? All right, I'm going to keep... got it. From the Wireless Bureau's Broadband Division, Chris Heltzer. From the Wireline Bureau's Industry Analysis and Technology Division, Alec McDonnell. From the Media Bureau's Engineering Division, Jeffrey Newman. From WTB's Spectrum and Competition Policy Division, Tom Tran. From the Enforcement Bureau's Tampa office, Jerry Ulsek. And from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, Dr. Bill Lane, Dr. John Healy, Brian Liu, and Julia Tu. So please, on behalf of all of us, give these tremendous public servants a round of applause. But wait, there's more. I'm now going to announce the winners of the Excellence in Economic Analysis Award. Same thing. Please stand when your name is called. Stands. You can sit. Go ahead. We'll all. Winners of our Excellence in Economic Analysis Awards from our Office of Strategic Planning, Pat LaFontaine. Oh, Paul LaFontaine. Sorry, Paul. From WCB, Jim Eisner and Craig Stroop. Also from WCB, Dick Kwiatkowski. From WTB, Ben Freeman. And from OSP, Paroma Sanyal and Tracy Walden. So once again, please give these terrific public servants a round of applause. Thank you very, very much. Let me recognize some other award winners before I ask my colleagues for any comments. One, we have an award to present to an 18-year FCC veteran. This is the 2012 Employee of the Year Award, Nancy Vu. If Nancy is here, please stand up. Nancy was... Nancy was selected by the Joint Management and NTEU Award Committee. Nancy is an accounting technician in the Office of Managing Director and one of the many unsung heroes, this agency relies on. Nancy's efforts to expedite the payment of invoices alone saved the agency $216,000 last year. But OMD will tell you that you can't quantify what Nancy brings to the agency, someone who is widely respected by her peers and trains and mentors new employees. Congratulations, Nancy, on this well-deserved honor. Thank you. So I have some personnel announcements. So let me first ask my colleagues for any personnel announcements, any comments. Commissioner McDowell?
No special announcements other than comment would be congratulations to all of you. And in my 6+ years here, I'm every day reminded of what talented professionals we have working at the FCC. I think we are second to none to any other federal agency, and it's thanks to you and your colleagues as well. So congratulations and thank you for your public service.
Thank you. Commissioner Clyburn?
I, too, would like to thank all of those recognized today. I know you don't do it for this type of recognition, but it's not all bad when you get it. So thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosenworcel?
It's no secret that this agency is dominated by lawyers. But the real truth is that it's the economists and the engineers that tell us what to do. So thank you all for your service. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Pai?
Just to add, I think it's useful for us to remember and for the public to know that we truly are an interdisciplinary agency. Economics and engineering are a fundamental part of what we do, and you exemplify the best in each of those fields. So thank you for your service. We are all the better for it.
Thank you very much. And I just have a couple of personnel announcements to make. One, I'd like to welcome Justin Cole, who is joining the Chairman's office as our new press secretary. I think Justin is here somewhere, sorry. There we go. Hey, Justin. Justin has a terrific and impressive background in the private sector, in this space and outside of it. He's already hit the ground running. We're very, very pleased that Justin has signed up to join us. And Justin, I know you'll do an excellent job. With the addition of Justin to the Chairman's office, I'm pleased to announce that the inimitable Neil Grace has been promoted to the post of Senior Communications Advisor to the Commission. Neil has done an unbelievable job working more than 24/7 on a series of assignments in his role as press secretary, serving our goal of informing the public and working with the press on the very long list of issues that we have before us. I'm very pleased that Neil will continue to be working at the agency. It's about time that we decided to share Neil with the rest of the agency. So welcome, Justin. Congratulations, Neil. Thank you both for your service. And with that, Madam Secretary, please announce the date of the next Commission meeting.
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission is Friday, November 30th, 2012.
Thank you very much. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Hey, everyone. Thanks for your patience and the waiting for the photographs and for the vast press audience here today. I do want to thank Neil for just great work, very hard, and Neil is going to get some well-deserved sleep. Where should we start?
Let's start Paul Kirby at TR Daily, we don't get pictures, just the award winners? Is that what it is?
You know what? You don't ask, you don't get.
All right, whatever. Maybe Neil will get one. You mentioned on the WCS item, you said that at the beginning of this year, you guys decided enough is enough. It had been 15 years. So did the FCC staff, you implied as much, I just wanted to clarify, go to the parties and say, see if you can work something out? Because obviously in June, AT&T and Sirius came and said, this is what we got.
Yeah. The answer is yes, and this is the spirit. You've seen this, Paul, many times over the last 4 years in a number of different areas. This is a proactive commission with a proactive staff. We see problems. We're focused on solving them. And in this one, the team that you saw up here, Julie Knapp, Ruth Milkman, just did tremendous work running a process with the parties that led to the understanding and the order today.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hi.
And welcome to the beat.
Just about to say thank you. Introducing myself, Sarah Portlock, Wall Street Journal, taking over for Amy while she's on maternity leave.
Which, by the way, is the news today.
Exactly. Exactly. We won't maybe not flash it, but my question is about the how SoftBank and T-Mobile deal will affect competitiveness here, and sort of among the wireless industry, and your thoughts on now if there's 4 stronger companies, what that might do.
So this won't surprise your colleagues, but our policy is not to comment on specific pending transactions. At a higher level, and I also hate to do this, but to refer you to a speech I gave. But in the last month, I gave 2 significant speeches. One of them was on the mobile marketplace. And among other things, I talked in that speech about the importance of competition in driving investment and innovation and consumer value in our global competitiveness, and also the importance of secondary market transactions, efficiency-enhancing secondary market transactions, which have a very important role to play also in driving investment, innovation, and our global competitiveness. And I went on in more detail about both the tremendous progress that we've made as a country in the last 4 years in mobile, moving from a laggard to a leader on mobile innovation, on infrastructure, the rollout of 4G, but also talking about the fact that the game's not over and we have many significant challenges ahead to stay ahead of the world in mobile. I just got back from Brazil, and I see this when I travel internationally. The rest of the world knows that the U.S. has regained global leadership, and many of their questions to me is, how did the U.S. do this? And they also wake up every day asking themselves, what do we need to do on broadband, on mobile broadband, to drive our infrastructure and to drive the innovation economies in their country? So we're in a race, we're in a real competition, and it's going to take an ongoing concerted effort to maintain the U.S. leadership position.
I think that anyone who has to deal with me on a nearly daily basis deserves a promotion. Congratulations, Neil. Should we as Americans be concerned that we're looking at having only one truly American-owned company as one of our 4 major wireless providers?
Well, the rules on ownership of companies in the telecommunications space are set by Congress. They're existing FCC rules. The focus is on driving investment and innovation in the U.S., benefiting our economy, benefiting American consumers.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Todd Shields, Bloomberg News. Dish Network Corp. has a proposal, an airways proposal, before the agency. Can you give us any insight onto when there may be some motion on that or a decision?
Well, we set a deadline at the beginning of the year of, March, I think, is when we set the deadline of resolving it by the end of the year. And that was a 9-month target that we gave ourselves, which for the kind of rulemaking for that kind of rulemaking would be the fastest the Commission had ever done. So that remains our goal. I think I repeated it in my speech a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I went beyond by the end of the year. So that's what we're doing. Of course, it requires an ongoing process with all the stakeholders involved, but it is a priority, and it's something that staff is actively working on.
Thanks.
All right, happy Wednesday. No questions about the Nationals. It was just It's a miserable,
Yeah.
miserable thing. Anyway, thanks all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I'm assuming, do you guys have some questions about the PSAP do not call registry? You do? Okay, if the Consumer Bureau could come up for the first item. Chris Monteith and her staff. Great. Why don't we start on the right this time?
I don't have questions.
Oh, you don't? Okay, Paul.
Chris, there are references to outreach to schools and PTAs. That would imply some of the promise from recorded messages delivered by schools and PTAs via auto dialers, presumably to communicate things like unscheduled school closings. Is there an estimate of how many of the auto dial calls to PSAP numbers are coming from those kinds of sources as opposed to telemarketing, fundraising, that kind of thing?
We really don't have those figures, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Okay. Why don't we, Chris, do you want to just stay up here instead of coming, do questions on Bill Shock? Are we doing that too? Okay, good. Thank you. OET, do you have questions on the second one? Paul, do you have any?
Yeah, I have two.
Great.
The press release says that the rules are consistent with the compromise submitted by AT&T and Cirrus. Those companies said, we'd like you to adopt this in total. Don't deviate from it. Are there changes? Are the rules different in any way than the compromise proposal?
No, we don't believe that they are.
Okay. And then it also mentioned the press release as well as the presentation mentioned the build-out, the new build-out deadlines. Are those consistent or the same as what AT&T had proposed regarding build-out?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I got. Oh, and we always ask this, but is the expectation that the item might be out today?
Could be.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We always try to move it quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks.